Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here with the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook on Sunday the 22nd of December. Now in the final run up to Christmas, we've got a rather cold westerly pattern in charge across the British Isles, so there'll be some further showers coming in off the Atlantic, those of snow and hail, and the higher mountains staying generally sub-zero. Christmas Day itself looks quite an optimistic day for many places as a ridge of high pressure briefly builds, but it goes downhill again, I suspect, into Boxing Day, and a very complicated outlook further ahead than that. Let's see what we can make out of things over the next few days then. And first of all, temperatures. This is the 850 millibar level. That's at around 1300 metres in the atmosphere, corresponding then just to the highest tops on this chart. And for Monday, we've got a freezing level of around 1000 metres, so only just a degree or so below freezing generally on those high tops. Through into Christmas Eve, and we just see a slight lowering of the freezing level to around 800 metres or so, particularly across Scotland, 800 or 900 metres for Northern England, a bit higher than that for Wales, but will tend to drop as a front passes southwards through the course of the day. Christmas Day itself then sees temperatures at around about -2, give or take, on the very highest tops in Scotland, and a freezing level, again, around 700 or 800 metres, I would have thought, for most mountains, maybe a touch higher across Wales. Onwards into Boxing Day, and this is where complications really start to arise as fronts come back up from the southwest. And it's really then hinging on where the centre of the next low pressure goes in terms of where temperatures go in that post-Christmas period. It may well be that colder air hangs on across Scotland and northern Britain as a front does a rotation eastwards across the country. If that colder air does hang on, we could well see a fall of snow extensively across some mountains on Boxing Day, but at this stage very early to tell exactly who will get most of that one. Let's see what we can do before we get there, though. This is Monday's chart, first of all, and a windy day for many places, particularly from southern Scotland southwards, gale force winds across the higher mountains. We've got some showers clustering together into something a bit more organised for a time across the Scottish Highlands, so some snow and some hail may well be fairly persistent over a good number of hours, passing eastwards through the day, breaking up a bit into showers that follow from the west. And a few areas of showers too, feeding in off the Irish Sea onto the Lakeland Fells. Again, could be frequent for a few hours here, a few of them across Wales, generally a bit drier under a brief ridge of high pressure before the next fronts start to approach into Monday night. A broad centre of low pressure then passes eastwards into Christmas Eve daytime, and the idea of a rather murky day for Wales and the Pennines, with areas of rain and some snow across the very highest tops, might take until later in the day for Wales before it turns to snow on the high tops, having been rain for a good part of the day. Could be the risk of strong winds as well, just depends exactly on the final shape of that low, but as a west by northwesterly could become quite gusty as those fronts wrap themselves through. And clusters of showers affecting Scottish mountains, chiefly across western and northwestern coastal areas, one or two pushing inland. Just again will depend on the final wind strength. It looks as though the winds are relatively light across the Highlands at this stage. All of that moves through into Christmas Day, and it's looking a pretty good day with high pressure building in as a ridge from the south. We start off the day with a brisk west by northwesterly wind. That will ease, perhaps markedly so, as the ridge of higher pressure builds in. It may well mean that through Christmas Day afternoon there's very little wind in many places, perhaps the far north of Scotland, just hanging on to that stronger breeze. One or two early showers, but for the most part it's a dry day with some sunshine pretty widely. One or two low-level mist and fog patches may have formed across England and Wales. Otherwise it should be some sunshine and excellent visibility with a pretty clear air mass that's in charge at this time. Be aware of temperatures being sub-zero then on most of the higher mountains, and the terrain at least partially frozen on those higher tops. Bit of a treat then from the weather machine on Christmas Day, but things not looking quite so sparkling on Boxing Day. All will depend on timing and the exact track and position of the next incoming low. Moving in from the southwest then on Christmas night, things deteriorating with the winds becoming gale force, and areas of rain preceded by snow pushing northwards. Now, if this low takes a track that's a bit further south, as some models suggest, then it may well be there's a fall of snow across the Lakeland Fells, across the Pennines and the southern uplands of Scotland. If the low is a bit further north, it will turn more to rain from the south and southwest, and the risk of some snow is more focused on the Highlands. So one to watch at this stage for Boxing Day. At the very least, it looks a poorer day compared to Christmas Day. For your early planning, at least bear that in mind. And what that leaves us with for Friday, very, very uncertain. It must be said the remnants of that low may be just tracking away eastwards, pressure trying to build again from the south. There may be some further fronts waiting in the wings though. Friday, a big question mark on the exact detail at this stage. And there's certain times as a meteorologist where at more than 3 or 4 days ahead you just end up throwing your hands in the air and saying, well, we've just got to wait and see what happens. This chart, as an example of next weekend, is just about telling the story of what we could see. There's not a huge degree of difference in terms of the general large-scale weather pattern across our part of the Northern Hemisphere. There's a ridge of higher pressure building in from the south. There's a trough of lower pressure somewhere over the North Atlantic. This is 2 different model charts from 2 separate computer systems. One would have a centre of high pressure building much further northwards, the chart on the left, and effectively settling things down for a few days of inversion conditions, some frost, some low-level fog, and dry conditions prevailing. The chart on the right, a separate computer model altogether, doesn't build that high anywhere near quite as far north, and would bring a more south by southwesterly flow generally across the British Isles, and would still leave us somewhat vulnerable then to fronts coming in from the Atlantic. That would be a generally milder airflow because we're being affected more directly by a southwesterly. It would be windier, there'd be more in the way of low cloud on western mountains, and there'd be the risk of some rain and a bit of upland snow, but more likely rain with the milder air in place. Indications at this stage, I would favour at least the left chart scenario for a few days, so some quieter weather looks believable through next weekend, but all too soon, before we get to New Year, we may well just open the door to that Atlantic pattern fully coming back in. The honest answer at the moment is so much of that could just change, and it will all hinge really on what happens with the Boxing Day weather system that is coming in. Where that moves to will then dictate exactly what happens after that. So stay up to date with the forecast. All our local 3-day ahead written content updated every single day through Christmas on our website. I'll have the next video updated for you on Boxing Day, looking in full detail at that weekend. For now though, from us all here at the Mountain Weather Information Service, have a wonderful Christmas. If you are heading out onto the mountains through the festive period, stay safe and enjoy the mountains. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.